live at Get Resource, where we chat everything about getting reconnected resource back to self, source, and others. And last Wednesday we had some technical glitches and internet issues, video, audio, all that jazz, and we're hopefully now we got a new setup here that we resolved it. So we're gonna do a little redo to set up this month's theme, transactional to relational. But first, we like to check in, and our question prompt is, "What's alive in you, Summer?"
Well, I'm feeling a little melancholy and a little out of sorts today. Yeah, aware that my dad's not doing very well and a little worried about that. And so my enthusiastic energy is a little dampened. That's what's a little more alive in me today, right now. How about for you, Drew?
Mhm.
What's alive?
Currently, some irritation, frustration with setting up the technology. Uh, your setup was definitely irritating to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so and it's just fresh, and that's what's alive in me currently. And I'm also looking forward to this conversation, see where it goes and flows. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a recap a little bit about transactional versus relational relationships and what that's like.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And something alive in you to start us off with.
I don't know. I've been thinking, not that we can function without money, but what if we didn't have money? How would our lives be so different? How would relationships be different? Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, without money.
without money.
Mm.
Hmm. Or maybe even without the concept of time or money.
Mm. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean that's a question we like to pose to whoever's watching. What would life look like without money? What do relationships look like without money? I don't know. For me, it's like, I think it goes back to like bartering in some way, trading resources. Money is to me an exchange of value. So perhaps there'll still be some type of exchange, but exchange for gifts or skills or talents, like a potluck dinner where everybody contributes a food item, right? And there's more than enough to come around. And so I think we'll kind of go back to that type of bartering system of like exchanging resources or what we need in the moment. Yeah,
Mm.
because money in a way is an accumulation of value. And so when there's an accumulation of value, and if the system itself is tilted towards one particular subgroup, then there's an uneven distribution of resources, right? Which can create haves and have-nots. And they did this like psychological study on the game of Monopoly. And so they
Mm.
had two players playing, and they rigged it for one player where every time they would pass the home where they get money, they would get double the amount. So this one player would get double the amount while the other player just got the normal amount. And they what they realized was the person that got more money started to become more aggressive and more greedy
Oh.
and more controlling, while the person that didn't have the money became anyway submissive and passive. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like this idea that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, I butchered it, but yeah,
It's a
yeah.
game of Monopoly. Okay, interesting. Isn't that what we're playing here on planet Earth?
Mm,
And interesting, I noticed that when I brought up that question that you went directly to resources, in other words, tangible things versus and sharing tangible things versus more the relational, what we might call service orientated um, things here on planet Earth. Um, so I find that curious, and maybe I don't know what the distinction is between um, service-oriented things and things, actual material goods.
Mm,
Um,
well, I mean, hey, Chris, just want to say howdy. Great to have you here with us. Yeah, that question of like, I mean, my skills, right? My gifts can be presence. My skills could be teaching communication. My skills can be empathy. So it's just whatever I'm talented in that I get to contribute to the community, to the space, right? Like if I was a blacksmith or a baker, then I contribute with my wares. But what if I wasn't? What if I was more specialized in relational dynamics, right? What if I was specialized in how communities operate? That's a gift of intelligence and wisdom, what elders offer through their experience over the years. And so I find it's just as long as it's a contribution, right? Because
mm,
money is an energetic exchange if we look at it, right? It's a trade of what is the perceived value. So if you ask the question, if we took money out of the system, I think something else will take its place.
mm, yeah, interesting. Okay. I like the word contribution. That kind of strikes me. Contribution, reciprocity. What what do we give to each other, and what are we giving to? I know Marshall has that concept of life-serving energy. We talk about well-being. Um, I remember in university learning about the book Shooting the Hippo and how
Wow.
GDP and value in our culture, GDP, gross domestic product, goes up when we have war. And that's super interesting because I would say that war is more or less life taking, yet in our culture, the value of it is quite high when we talk about it. So there's something really twisted in that. So I'm curious about
Mm.
how we measure things with things. If our gross domestic product or how we measure things as value or how wealthy we are goes up when we actually engage in war. I think that's super interesting. That's just what's coming to me at the
Mm.
moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Mm.
call myself an expert in economics and the industrial military complex. Though it does make sense to me that war is a business,
Uh,
and that boils down to the model that I'm in. I live in is capitalism, and I think that's a whole can of worms to open up within of like what is capitalism and how that affects societal constructs. Though going back to the theme of transactional to relational, I think if we were to put a context to kind of guide the conversation, let's guide it in terms of the way we relate with each other. So perhaps instead of looking at the macro um, of like world politics and where society's going, let's look at like how we interact with our family, how we interact with each other, how do we interact in networking events. And if I had to attribute to growing up, and this is something I talked about in our last restream before the tech glitches, was I grew up like in the idea of like tell me what to do. Like I really, if I look back, I had a slave mindset. I wasn't trained to know what my needs were, and I was trained to obey obey my parents' demands, and then I obey my teachers' demands. And so I carry that to my employment, telling, asking my boss, hey, what can I do here? What's my resume or the job application? What are my roles and responsibilities? And so it's not to fault the employer. I just came in with the mindset of not knowing that I had needs and had the awareness of what my responsibilities were or to think for myself. I outsourced it. Right. And so then I would be in a way an asset, right? Or a liability. Would be cattle in a way to be traded for because I'm exchanging my time and energy for a salary. Hmm? Yeah. So how I go with this is that I move into the networking world of doing independent sales. So I needed to meet people. And now I needed to be responsible for my actions. I couldn't just sit there and be like, tell me what to do. Well, I'm not getting paid. I don't have a boss. So I got to tell myself what to do and go out there and do something. But then I went out with the intention of creating business. So now I looked at people of judging them based on their profession and what they did, asking what do they do, right? And then automatically bucket them. Is it worth my time to talk to this person? Really, because my intention was to make money. My intention was to generate business. So that was my right in a way energy going into those spaces.
Interesting. So the idea of intention.
Hmm.
Hmm. The intention goes back to making money. And
Yeah,
maybe
because
that's our
survival.
whole intention, right? Kids are brought up in education to make money. And so maybe everybody then, every customer, everything is to make money. And even when we get married, and sorry, this might be twisting it back to politics, but when we get married, it's licensed by the government, and then the government deems are you dependent on that person or not, and then they tell you how much your wife or your children are worth and how much money you get deducted off your taxes. Um, it's a very interesting thing, really, because I know a lot of people will do a lot of different things to avoid paying taxes and different things. Um, I'm sure you're like, oh my God, where's she going with this?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. And to be true, I don't really know. But what that that sounds transactional. Like how much money can I get from this person? How much money do I get each year when I get my money back from my from my taxes for my children? Um, and at the end of the day, when we get divorced, what are we looking at? We're looking at, oh, how much money can I keep? How much child tax do I have to pay? How much are they going to take out of my house? Um, there's no when we go to looking at what relational is, it's like, how do I know there's this sentient being in front of me? How do I make this person feel? And I remember this quote once, which was, it doesn't really matter what we do. People remember how they make us feel. And so transactional seems to be about what we can get or what we do. And relational really seems to be about how we make people feel. And as sentient beings, I think we mostly run on feeling, um, but we relate from a transactional point of view. So I see this conflict between those ways of being that is becoming more and more confusing to me anyways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like as you mentioned, like relational is how I make people feel. Hmm. And transactional is like, what can I get?
What can I get? What do I have to do?
Yeah,
Where do I
because
get
like it's really for me. I'll speak for myself. Like it challenges the paradigm I'm currently living in. Like perhaps challenging my identity of who I am. Because I could say like, hey, I got to pay the bills, right? I got to make a living. I got to take care of my family. What are you talking about? Making people how you know how they feel like who cares like this is the way the world is
mm-hmm,
like it's dog eat dog like if you don't get your own then you're going to be on the street. What do you say to that for those that are like what are you talking about Summer? Why should I care about how I make other people feel? i, I
mm,
need I need to pay the bills right now.
mm-hmm. I guess I would ask them how that makes them feel
Well, for
to have
me
to pay the
frustrated,
bills.
stressed, overwhelmed, right? irritated, annoyed, maybe resentful. Then imagine like life would be like this, my dreams being dashed. I thought this was the American dream,
Mhm.
but I'm end up working long hours and having to, be strong, stuff everything down and push forward, power through.
Mhm.
There's no time for feeling.
No. And then when they get divorced and they don't have a children or a wife anymore because they've been working 7 days a week, 40 hours a day, then I
Yeah.
wonder how they feel.
So how do we, kind of mix that together? The idea that came through for me is right livelihood, or pursuing a purpose and a passion that leaves people in the environment better, right?
Mhm.
It's like what am I contributing to, right? Am I taking all the time, or what is the vision and mission of the company or organization I work for? Where's my North Star, right? Perhaps making a living combined with making people feel great is a possibility of both, especially if I'm living in a capitalistic system and society.
Yeah. Well, I guess I mean, it goes back to supply and demand too, I guess. It's what people want. It's what people need once they recognize what it is that they might really want.
So I guess that's the key question is what do I need?
Mm,
And we haven't been educated to know what we need.
no. We only kind of do what everyone else is doing often. At least I know when I asked my mom, "Oh, why did you have kids?" She said it's because everyone else was doing it. Not to fault that. I mean, how do we know what to do unless we have people and mentors that show us what to do? We don't know, especially when we're young. That's what we're guided by is the culture that we live in. And
Hmm.
so if so many of us are burnt out, adrenal fatigued, sick, I'm not sure money and is worth a lot. So when it comes down to feeling that way, maybe we start to look for new ways of doing things which are more relational. Hmm, if I don't want to be burnt out and working all the time, then what are we going to do? And I know my friend Kathy and Marco and Victoria, they have a beautiful son. And he's like, hey, mom, I'm really thinking about a multi gen house, multi generational. So maybe we're going back to that. And I think there's a reason why people got away from it in the first place. Too many triggers, parents telling you what to do, those kinds of things. And now maybe this, um, where
Hmm.
it's getting too expensive to live in a single house where there used to be one person paying the bills, usually the dad, and now there's two, um, and sometimes each parent has more than one job. Maybe it's like, oh, how do we go back now to working more together versus living in these isolated units? And maybe that's a way of us going back to being more relational,
Hmm.
valuing that. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see, right? But definitely I see that though. And it does make sense where if if the cost of living is going up, and let's say I'm a student, I'd be living at home, right? More likely than not for a longer time. Or even then, like let's say it keeps going up. Like I think we'll have more people living together in communes or community living. And just like how we spoke about last week about AI, all this commotion about, oh my God, it's gonna take over all our jobs and it's gonna think like us. And well, actually, AI is great at processing data, but it doesn't have empathy. And there's a
No.
few other things that it doesn't have that makes us human. So actually, AI is really allowing us to be more human
Hmm.
because it takes us away from having to consume information and to decipher and organize it And it gives us the opportunity to go back to creating discernment of that information and how it relates to us and each other into the world. How do we take this information that's been stored in all these data warehouses and make sense of it? And that is human discernment coming in, because we then apply our empathy, our spirit, our soul to this information and track it from there. That's what I see. That's my theory. So going back to like cost of living, well, perhaps that brings us back into living more in groups.
Well, I love where you're going with that because, as you know, I've healed a big portion of my relationship with AI recently. It does. It organizes thoughts and information based on the person who's providing it and asking the questions, of course. It's very limited to that.
Hmm.
Um, but it gives us more time then, doesn't it? If you
Hmm.
don't need to create the spreadsheet, if you don't need to do it yourself and occupy it, you just say 3 sentences and it does it for you. Hmm. Does it do all the thinking and the analyzing so then we can start to do the feeling, to do the empathizing, to do the relating? So then we're going to have more of the best of all worlds. Oh, architecture. Hey, AI, can you design this building for me? Although I am remembering the book Ubuntu by Michael Tellinger, and one of his things based on his communities that he's built around the world was anytime money's involved or someone thinks they need more than someone else, there's a breakdown in that community itself.
Hmm.
And so, and the other thing about what you said, if I'm a student, I'm living at home. There's a discrepancy in power when we're talking about that because I'm living with my parents because they have the money and I don't, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah,
Yeah. Which like there's so many layers to this.
yeah, there
And
is.
and what's coming to mind is trust.
Mm.
Because if I don't trust you, it's because I don't trust myself. So then one of the actions is that I would hoard my resources. I would hoard money. I would want more because I don't trust that you would meet what I need. So I need to take care of myself.
Mm.
Right. So this whole idea of like nature gives abundantly, but can I only take what I need, not overtake? That's where I get in trouble, right? If everybody here took more than they needed, like we nature wouldn't keep up with our pace of taking. Like if we chopped up so much trees more than we need, nature wouldn't have enough time to replenish the trees that we chopped. And looking at an apple tree, right? There's more than enough apples for me, right? Nature already gives abundantly to each man and woman. But what if I like created the business from it and planted thousands of apple trees to sell apples? And that's where the consumption, right? The overconsumption, the greed comes in. And then that's the game that people think we should all be playing. Is this, yeah, this ruthless game of making more money, buying more things and stuff. And
A
that's
ruthless
attached to perhaps my worth. Yeah.
worth. Oh, a couple of key words there: truth and worth. Um, it reminds me of the falafel trees you were just talking about, all the apple trees and
Oh,
the Dr.
falafel.
Seuss book. Do you remember those colorful, fluffy trees that Dr. Seuss talked about?
Yeah.
Um, um, but right. And one other thing that you brought up, I remember there's a really funny meme. There's a hearse, and behind the hearse, there's this U-Haul.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's funny, right? You can't take money or things with you in your hearse. And so another thing that's coming up for me is legacy. What do people want to leave when they go?
Mm.
A lot of people think about legacy being estates and things.
Mm.
What if there's a different kind of legacy to leave? And this will bring
Mm.
me back to why I'm a little bit sad today, which is my dad. And when families are disrupted or disconnected, and maybe there's an essence of feeling or love or connection or kindness or inner peace that we want to leave behind. And maybe at the end of the game, that's far more valuable because you do take that with you.
Mm. And it goes back to like, how do I make people feel? If I had my funeral and someone came up and asked the people that attended my funeral, what did they remember me by? I can see legacy as being as potent as that, is leaving that impact. Not remembering what I did, but how I made them feel. And I think that's a quote too from someone. Yeah.
I saw in the hospital once. People don't remember what you do. They remember how they make you feel.
Yeah. And like I can go about like building monuments and statues of myself, houses and accumulation, but over time, like all that's gonna get eroded away.
Mhm. I guess it goes back to trust too, and that idea, like, am I here to live once, or do I take that with me? Is my soul an infinite being? Is it an energetic
Mm.
continuation?
Reminds me of this movie, Coco. Remember that movie?
Yeah, I love. Well, we watched that movie together. I love
Yeah.
Coco.
It's like the spirit of
Right.
the dead is remembered by the living, right?
Yeah.
Right. Our ancestors, um, they feed upon our remembrance of them and our rituals and ceremonies of them.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to live forever, I'd live forever on in the memories of people
Well, it may
in a
not even
sense.
be in the memories because, well, there's cognitive memory, and then I think there's DNA memory. People always talk about, oh, it runs in the family. Well, DNA changes based on the environment. And what we really inherit is the emotional and mental
Mm.
patterns from our parents and the patterns that we take on. And maybe the patterns we talk about, the black sheep and the disruptors of the more less life giving patterns. And maybe that's the legacy we leave. And sometimes people make the mistake, oh, I'm not going to do what my parents do. And then they do the exact opposite, which isn't helpful either. Um, but again, it goes back to,
Yeah.
for me, how we make people feel. And how do we know how we make people feel? By asking them, being curious and truly open hearted. And I noticed Chris said hi. And if anyone else is tuning in, we often don't see some of the messages for some reason from the multiple spaces. So we're going to look at the comments after we end, but we don't see a lot of them coming in through Restream here except for Chris's. So
Yeah.
we
And if
haven't
you are
seen.
watching live, do comment. Perhaps like we can do a quick test.
Oh, yeah.
Any
Okay.
message and just let us know where you're sending that message from, either like from YouTube or LinkedIn or the Facebook group or Summer's Facebook page, just as a test. Love to play with you so we can work out these kinks. Technology sometimes, right? So yeah, and we
Yeah.
love to, yeah, have you join in the conversation. I'm sure you might be sending the comments there, but we can't see it. There you go. Listening from my amazing life partner.
Hi,
Great.
Tracy.
I do see your comment there, Tracy Chris. Just curious, yeah, where are you texting those comments from?
It's from
so that we
some
know.
Facebook
Yeah, but curious whether it's on my Facebook page or your Facebook
or the
page
group.
or the group, right? So, yeah, like to do some tests right now. But let's tie it back to this question of like, how am I making you feel, right? And if I start relating to you in that way as like you're a human being versus a robot or a bag of money that I want to take, then in the society of like, hey, still needing to pay the bills, I think it changes the energy where the if there was money still involved, the transaction would be more of like a value exchange. Like I think people will be fine with knowing that, hey, you got value here. You make me feel seen. You know what my problems and challenges are, and you have a solution. I'd be more than happy to pay you for it, right? And perhaps that goes back to sacred economics, new ways of looking at how we collect payments or how we identify worth and value, like the idea behind equity or a contribution scale that we use that people can choose what number lines up for them because everybody has a different financial point, right, in their life. So, yeah. And,
Yeah,
and
if
where,
go ahead.
where I'm going with is like taking that relational perspective and paradigm and how do we like collaborate together in this system where money is still required.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, some insights that I have, and that is, everything has a different value based on the perception of the person purchasing it. Um, for a 16 or 17-year-old, a brand new car probably has a lot of value, but there's no way they can purchase it usually unless they found a really good online source, which is possible these days. But um, it changes based on our country, the currency, um, what stage of life we're in. And I guess, and one of the business courses we took recently, which I really appreciate, kind of changed a little bit of that perception a little bit, which is because most people are like in the coaching industry, like, oh, sell your program for 5, 10K, like keep selling it at the highest rate. And then what happens is you kind of end up with a monoculture of the people with the most money. And then you don't get the people who would pay half of that. And so you have less people and less money. Um, I mean, if you have a cap of only having 5 people and you're good with that, then I guess that's okay. But I know in my programs, sometimes we fully scholarship some of the women. And the amount of wisdom that they provide, because they may come from a country like Romania or something like that, and that the shift in perception of the world is so different and so unique that it leaves other people just in this changed way, and in a way that I couldn't provide it. I couldn't have said it in that way. And therefore, although financially there was a zero contribution, the way she
Mm,
spoke, her life experience gave so much awe and insight to everyone else there. It was truly invaluable.
mm,
And so I've had clients who pay a tremendous amount for my services and then they don't show up. It's annoying.
yeah.
It's like, I have this money. I'll just, do this and this with it and stay comfortable in my own mental emotional space. And so,
This
yeah,
be
value,
an energetic drain, doesn't it?
an energetic drain. So I think the idea of value, we're starting to play with that a little bit instead of it just being financial and money and numbers, which are really an abstraction of the energetic value that it represents.
Mm.
Because when I bring in someone who paid nothing but contributes so much mentally, emotionally, spiritually with her, like people are like, wow, she sounds like a prophet. She's just so full of information that is so valuable and is such a different way of thinking that the other women get way more out of it.
Mm.
So my value has just increased exponentially because this woman exists in my sphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes down to, education and spiritual or emotional things, I think that this is a very real reality that's starting to take
Mm.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. Value can be exchanged in more than just money, right? Can be exchanged in time. Someone can, contribute to doing your bookkeeping or your social media, be part of the team in exchange for being there, right? It could be in showing up and just contributing the wisdom and experience to the group itself. So yeah, it's a paradigm shift to look at how do we exchange with each other. It goes back to that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about time and exchanging time for money, people don't want to do that. They were like, how can I make a passive income? How can I strategize so that I have economies of scale? Right? That's what people want to know. I want to get more for less. That's generally how what we're people are
Well,
thinking.
I mean, I'm willing to exchange my time to
Mhm.
learn from this mentor, to get a back door on how he manages his team, how he creates his system. So definitely I'm willing to exchange my time for educational purposes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from. Ah,
Mm.
Maria, hi.
Yeah, Maria Lucent,
There's
welcome for Peru. Thank you, Chris Tracy. We're clarifying where you're chatting from Summer's Facebook page. So we know your Facebook page is working, babe.
yay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, Maria was having a comment here.
now let's see what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to pop it up, but it cuts it off, but we can read it out here. I've been thinking about time. I learned that originally time was kept without using minutes or seconds, much more tuned to the action sundial. Wonder what life would feel like without using minutes or seconds. Imagine, let's see here, it's cut off there. Imagine that it would be a life.
Much more attuned to nature and to presence, to compassion and to flow. I feel like this is the truest expression of relationship, one that exists beyond time, yet there are many levels. Yeah. Beyond time, right? It goes back to my idea of, well, do we only live this life or do we have a soul purpose? And back to that idea of family and my dad. Why was he my dad and why did I choose him if that's my belief, which I believe it is? And maybe beyond my personal purpose, maybe there's a familiar one. Um, and I'm curious about, you said sundial. Where was that? Sundial, la, la, la. Action sundial. I'm curious because I know when I went to a few psychological sessions, they're usually 50 minutes. And it's like, if I'm in mid process and they're like, oh, sorry, time's over, bye, you can leave triggered. And in my process, I leave a time window for clients, a window that is more unconscious with the flow and the degree of resolution that they have within themselves. And so I wonder if that is similar. Um,
Hmm.
and then it comes down to this concept of divine timing, which I think is very different and a struggle and definitely in
Hmm.
conflict to conventional 3D time, you know, what we
Yeah.
think we should be doing and what really happens in divine timing.
Yeah. I think I'll be more at peace if I follow like my circadian rhythm and the rhythm of nature. Like perhaps like wintertime, it's the time to hibernate and be a hermit and reflect and integrate all the knowledge I've gained and wisdom so I can, get to the meaning of life for myself rather than just working 8 hours a day, working 8 hours a day, and just doing the same thing across the four seasons, right?
Right?
Like just to
Wisdom.
be more aligned with nature's and life's intelligence. Mm.
Right. You said something too. Work. Career? Do you know where that word comes from?
The word career?
Yeah.
No.
The etymology? It means careening. To careen around a racetrack.
Oh my.
That's where it
Okay.
comes from. So we're all just careening, working our way up the ladder or racing, racing, racing around the racetrack. And it's like,
Mm.
what do you get at the finish line?
Yeah. A pension.
Spirit and nature.
Maria says, my work lily has been how to live in that timeless space, fully present in whatever is happening now. Brain damage has really required that from me. Hmm. Just like pagans experience spirit and nature. Hmm. Yeah. It's such a paradigm shift. I can see how my identity is like, no, like I built my life on the way things are right now, and I ain't gonna entertain that idea. Why would I want to? Unless something happens, right? Like a crisis or something that causes me to look at that. Like Maria, you named your brain damage, right? Which now asks you, requires you to be more in the now, here and now. You know?
Well, and that's where I see the awakening or the quickening or the shift. I don't know how many of you are out there watching this, but how many people do you notice in your circle of influence, your family, your friends, who are undergoing some kind of life crisis right now? Whether that's physical illness, divorce, injury, family crisis, work crisis, there is a massive human consciousness shift taking place.
Mm, yeah. And for me, if I were to make it practical for myself, I think it's more of slowing down to speed up. And I think
Mm.
everybody would agree about like there's more information than ever. There's so many distractions. It seems like life is just speeding up so quickly. Like overwhelm and stress is common in Western society, right? Capitalistic society. And so for me, there's value in like resting. There's value in being present. There's value with being with my sensations, like connecting with myself, talking to myself. And to me, I believe this is the path to self mastery is when I get to know myself. Again, getting to know my needs, getting to know how to discern what I'm feeling emotions, right? That are happening in my body to make sense of it, to gather it as data so that I can be like more aware of myself and where I want to go versus
Hmm.
being influenced by external circumstances and people's opinions and etc etc. So it's like, how do I be in this world, like play this main character? Yeah, like explore the world through a child's eyes, like the imagination, a world of stories and metaphors and images that language cannot explain.
No. It brings me back to some things that we've said, and that is some of the most creative and dynamic thinkers, especially Einstein, right? Imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is only what we currently know. And imagine gives us the scope
Mhm.
of everything that was and can be. And the other thing about that is that, oh, you said one other thing. Now it's drifting out of my consciousness. Maria put up something else here.
Mm, yeah. It's been amazing, actually. I miss all my appointments mostly. Oh, but I always am in a perfect place, trusting a flow, still working on grounding it. Huh.
Oh, that thanks, Maria. That reminds me, we were in one of our practices with the women the other day, and a lot of them came in going, "Oh man, I'm missing stuff, and I'm at this ha- high paced speed in my life." And I kept thinking to myself, well, after my grandson's hockey game is over, I'll slow down my life. And after this, and after this, and after this, you should finally realize, oh, I have to slow down. I can't depend on the outside world to slow down before I do. And a lot of the women, and we have this tendency of saying, oh, I'm not doing anything. I didn't do nothing. I'm nothing. To reword that as doing the most important things, which is rest, rejuvenation, being present, offering love, and all of the restoration. Because like the earth, trees, if they do winter and spring, they lie dormant and they come back. And as humans, we're not machinery. We need the rest, the rejuvenation, to be able to actually be of value, to contribute anything of great value, especially the great thinkers, the people who invent things, the people who think beyond what's already exists. It's absolutely essential.
Hmm. Yeah.
But we downplay it. It's like we call it lazy. We have this judgment that is,
Hmm. And it's because there's some trauma for me. Like, if my work or if my worth is attached to my work, like this idea of like if I don't start working and be productive, then that means I'm less than. Like
yeah, if
as
I
soon
don't
as
make some money.
yeah, because I measure that to my worth. The more money I have, it means the more successful I am. I carry that with me. Or the more I get stuff done, the more I feel better about myself. Interesting. Where's that come from? Why is my happiness attached to what I do or how much I do, right?
Goes back to relationships, probably because I don't have a lot of meaningful relationships. I don't feel in connection with others. Therefore, I get my worth through what I'm doing instead.
Yeah. It's very sad, I think about like working so hard and having all this but no one to share it with,
Mm.
or like going home and to an empty house. Like what's the point of just torturing myself, sacrificing myself, and of course it's so easy to be like, let me drink some alcohol, like it's interesting because the more money I have, the more alcohol I can get, and the more expensive alcohol I can get too. Right? So
Yeah, anyone who
like I'm
works up
not
in McMurray knows that one. They make a lot of money, but there's also a lot of other substances out there to numb what the separation and the hard work that they're doing. Yeah.
yeah, so this whole living in this planet, man, like the root of it, the reason why I want to work so hard is to get that approval from my parents 100%, to know that I am enough. The report card days where it was traumatizing, that their love, what I interpreted, was based on A's and having A's and meaning whatever they asked of me, right? And so definitely conditioned that love is based on performance. And so
Mm.
there it is, love, right? I want love. I want
All right.
acceptance.
Okay. Well, I have
Hooray.
one for you.
Hmm?
How did that report card stuff and expectations of getting A's and doing that stuff? How did it make you feel?
Terrified. Well, first scared, terrified, and yeah, sad. Also helpless in a way. Yeah.
Can you imagine that's what we're making children feel? Terrified, scared, and helpless. Get an A. You can't get an A, you're not worth anything. Yikes.
Hmm.
Goes back, of course, to me, to the soul, to God, to if we're on the planet. Oh, what are you feeling right now? That was, yeah.
Well, I think like, yeah, soul's purpose, right? Like if you're on the planet, you're on the planet for a reason,
Yeah.
and that you have a gift.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Integral thread to the intricate weaving of universe.
Yeah. And to uncover those layers, right, that have been programmed into me, like to get to the source of my essence, showing up and contributing my essence to the world. Isn't that the journey, eh?
It is. It's mine, anyways. Hmm.
Soul work. Yeah. Excavation.
It goes back to trust. Which I guess is faith based, which isn't about religion.
But it's the antidote to transactions.
It's the
Trust is the antidote.
transactions. That's right.
Hmm.
And what erodes trust? Fear. And I think this what goes back to our transactional world is that most of it's based in fear. Everything is marketed based in fear. They'll tell people that people respond better based in fear, and I think this is where people are starting to make different decisions. I have my clients at least come to me and they're like, oh yes, I just know this is what I need. I'm not going to go back and forth and argue in my head about what I need or what I don't, why it's good and why it's bad. It's just a yes. In my body, it's a yes. It's like that kinesiology. What's yes? What's life giving to me? And what isn't? And that our decisions are starting to be made because we're becoming more and more conscious on that life giving yes in our body and to follow that without
Hmm.
going insane and trying to think and outweigh and argue and blah, 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 blah. We can leave that to AI. Chat can give us all those different types of things, but only we know what is inner resonantly true for us.
That's right. Yeah. AI has data. You have discernment. AI has speed. You have soul.
And what's interesting about that, Andre, at least I think in this moment, is that if you can know in an instant what's true, you don't need all the time to sift through it, and it's exponentially quicker
Hmm.
when you know that way.
Hmm.
It's the
You get the
irony.
knowing. You know.
Hmm.
Yeah, and to be able to learn the skills too, right? Like the work the ladies do with you and the men that do with myself is the excavation of getting connected to that soul language and then living from the inside out. The next piece is to be able to communicate consciously so that we're communicating in life-giving ways, not life-taking, right? As you said, our language is also based in fear.
It is. It's a transactional language. English is a transactional language. Yes. Yes. It's it's a colonialized language. Uh, well, English. It's the Queen's English, um, based in the paupers and the farmers that are meant to provide to the kingdom, and we're still using it. It's not. It's the same thing in Edmonton. It's the Court of Queen's Bench. The Court of Queen's Bench. Bench means bank. And so we're still, although Canada's free, still living in that realm.
Hmm.
Not to leave it on a heavy note, just to know that the way out is not through transactionalism, it's through relationship.
Yes, the self source and others.
Nice way to bring it back.
Yeah. So that wraps up our conversation today. Appreciate everyone joining us. Chris, Tracy, Maria. It's lovely to just be with you here.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next time. Same time, 12 p.m. Mountain, Friday. Get resourced. Bye. Bye for now.